everyone, you probably clicked on this video because you're curious as to how can you eat healthy on a budget. And I'm going to take you through some of the meals that I make when I am being conscious about trying to make protein-rich, fiber-rich meals to help support my goals, my family goals, as well as just keeping in mind that healthy doesn't have to be difficult. It can be super simple, and give you some guidance and kind of take you through like, what am I making? And maybe this will give you some ideas. So let's hop on into the video. I'm gonna do a voiceover of just showing you what I'm making this week and the meals that I had that are ultra realistic, and hopefully, like I said, you gather some ideas. Anyways, let's hop right into the video. Here I have all the ingredients for the Crockpot pork roast that I'm going to be making in the video here. Very simple ingredients. You probably already have most of these things in your fridge or on your countertop. First things first, I am just putting the pork shoulder into the Crockpot, just taking it out of the package. And then I am going in with some salt and sprinkling that on there pretty heavily, just to help some enzymatic breakdown of the pork with the salt. Then I'm going in with some garlic to add a lot of flavor. Love getting the big garlic container from Costco. It is an endless supply and lasts a very long time. Adds so much flavor to the dish. And then I am grabbing some onions and going in. These were actually frozen, so it was very easy. I didn't have to chop them. I like to pre-chop a lot of onions and then freeze them in those baggies, and it makes it easier for later on. Now I'm going in with some paprika and making sure that I'm fully covering the roast there. And I am going in with some garlic powder and then onion powder. I'll be coming in here with that real quick and giving that a nice heavy base foundation of the seasonings. Then pepper, of course, so you guys can see nothing crazy with the seasonings, just very generic, like your basics that you'd have in the pantry. Then I'm gonna pour about half cup of the bone broth in there. And again, I get this bone broth from Costco, a lot cheaper. Now I'm going into chopping the carrots, and very easy. Like, I love getting whole carrots because I feel like they hold an extra crunch and extra flavor. So I do like buying whole carrots, and usually buying the whole carrots is actually more of a budget-friendly option, surprisingly. Now you can make this recipe tons and tons easier and just get pre-cut carrots, but I just think that whole carrots are superior to the pre-cut, pre-washed carrots. So as I finish those up, I'm gonna be taking those and I'm gonna dump those into the crock pot with the pork shoulder sitting in there. So then we're gonna go into chopping the baby potatoes, and I'm simply just gave them a good vinegar rinse and wash in the bag, making sure I wash them really well. You wanna be sure to really wash your produce really, really good. And I like to cut them in half because they cook a lot better. And like with the whole potatoes, you probably could do that, but I just like doing the halves because then it's like more evenly distributed throughout the meals when you're like portioning it out later on and serving it. Then I'm gonna really take those and I'm gonna dump those in with the carrots and just roll those on in. As you can see, it's kind of one of those dump and go meals. You really could do this right before work and get it all set. I like to do a little wipe down before I put the lid on, make sure all the seasonings are off of there. And then I put that lid on, and then I'm gonna select this. As you can see, my crock pot is quite old, so you can't really see the words and numbers really well, but I'm just kind of guesstimating here of what I know about my crock pot. So I'm gonna put it first on low for about 8 hours. You can do 10. I think 10 would be so much better, just to like really marinate in those flavors and get that full effect. Now we're going into, I'm just taking a fork and I'm gonna pull apart the pork, and you can see that at first I'm gonna take out some of the bones. The bones should come out really easily if the pork is done. And so it's basically should pull apart like with the meat itself. You can see it's like the bone is just falling off there. And so I put that into a separate container so I can discard that later. But yeah, essentially I'm gonna go in with the fork again, and then I'm just gonna shred everything up and make sure that all gets mixed up really well so that when I go to serve it, it's kind of like evenly portioned as best as possible. And as you can get a close up, there's nothing like a good old crock pot roast, especially with fall coming up in a few months. I'm just I love roast all year round, really. Both beef roast and pork roast. And so I am just dishing this out using a slotted spoon and just portioning that out. I like to make sure I have a nice big bulk of like that protein from the pork on there. And then I like to get some of those baby potatoes for the carbs and some of the carrots for some extra fiber and some carbs as well. But there you have it. Extremely simple, you guys, and super easy to make. Now let's move on to the spaghetti squash and steak. And so if you never microwaved a spaghetti squash, you're going to learn right now. All you got to do is poke a bunch of holes with a fork around the whole spaghetti squash to really let it aerate when it's in the microwave. And you can see it's fairly easy to do. And so I'm going to put that in the microwave. Just going to set it on the plate in there, and then I'm going to start it for 7 minutes for the first round and let that go, let that heat up. Meanwhile, while the spaghetti squash is cooking in the microwave, I am getting out the steaks to get ready to prepare and cut up. You can see here I have 2 T-bone steaks. You can use sirloins, that would be great. This is just what we had on hand for our meat supply as far as steaks goes. So that's what we're gonna make use out of. So I really like to cut these up into chunks because this time I'm gonna cook them in the air fryer. Love doing air fryer steaks. They turn out amazing. And I do actually like to cut off that extra layer of fat. You can see like that white part, that is the fat, and all the white in between the red is the marbling. So I like to cut that out as much as possible. Yes, it does add flavor, but for us, we don't necessarily need that fatty of a cut of protein. So I try to minimize the extra fats on the side. And then I just, of course, you're not going to get into the marbling, taking out that fat. You just make do, but air frying it is going to release some of that fat so that it's not super, so it's a little bit leaner. And that allows for more room for adding fats elsewhere, like you'll see later on in the video. So I'm just getting my air fryer prepped, and I just put some parchment paper down in the bottom for an easy cleanup. I am putting all my steak bites in there, and I'm gonna be adding some seasonings here really soon. So I like to take the fork, spread them out a little bit so I can get an even coating of stuff. And so I'm starting out with this like steak seasoning that I got as a gift, and I love it. I think it's from Tastefully Simple, so extremely good like for your steaks and stuff. And then I'm just gonna enter this into the air fryer, and I like to do that at 375 for about 15 minutes, and then I'll check it halfway through, stir that around. Okay, so steak is in the air fryer. What I'm doing is I am going to just flip the spaghetti squash. I'm gonna add another 7 minutes to the microwave to let that cook all the way through. Fast forward to that being done. I'm taking this out with an oven mitt because this spaghetti squash is extremely, extremely hot now that it's fully cooked. So I'm just taking a knife and I am cutting that spaghetti squash in half. And as you can see, I had to kind of like take the oven mitt because it is so hot, and you can see the steam coming off of it. So I like to cut it there, and then I will eventually take a spoon to get the inside of the seeds out. So you want to be able to scoop those out. And I just take a dish that's next to me, and I'm just gonna put those in there for now so that I can discard them later. Now that all the seeds are out, I'm just taking a couple of teaspoons of butter and I'm putting them on each side. And what this is gonna do is gonna add some flavor, a little bit of fat in there. And I'm just taking this spaghetti squash and you can see it's just pulling apart. Spaghetti squash as the beauty she is right there. And so I'm just taking that through there, and to add a little bit more flavor and pizzazz, adding garlic and onion powder. Love those two things. They are lovely. And then I'm adding those in to add that extra pizzazz there. Of course, get my salt cellar to sprinkle some salt in there and make sure that that adds some flavor too. We don't, nobody wants to eat some bland spaghetti squash, and not typical. I'm not that person. I like to add some seasonings to it to really liven it up. Okay, so now that I have all the spaghetti squash ready to go and flavored and everything, I am plating this on the plate. So you can, you could even do the whole half of a spaghetti squash, honestly. It's very voluminous, high in fiber, has some carbs in there, but it is a lower carbohydrate source. So if you're mixing this with pasta, it can really add volume to your plate, as you can see. So typically I like to just put that base. For now, I'm just gonna do some Parmesan, shredded Parmesan on there, and then add the steak bites here in a second to make a little Parmesan spaghetti squash little mixture here. And so there you have it. Is a very simple, like, plated dish, spaghetti squash and steak. Thanks for watching today. Hope this gave you a couple good ideas.